Yes, people, footballing community, welcome back for the hashtag trilogy collaboration for Hollie's Hotspurs and AlbertJTV. Club loyalties aside, international duty, Euro 2024 preview show. But before we get into it, people, let's hit the intro. This is how the story began. We covered the men's 2022 Qatar World Cup. We also covered the women's 2023 World Cup in Australia, New Zealand. Now we are back for the trilogy of Hollie's Hotspurs and AlbertJTV. Hashtag tournament time. Welcome to the Euro 2024 preview show. Yes, people, welcome back to AlbertJTV meets Hollie's Hotspurs. Joint collaboration time for the trilogy. No, people, it's not a franchise, but I felt like making it up anyway because, you know, me and Hollie like to get together for international duty. We did it once. We even did it twice, people. But we are back for the hat trick. Hollie, this has been in the pipeline for quite a while. I did say Hollie's Hotspurs meets AlbertJTV, so you're actually on the right side of the screen as we're watching it now. Also, let me not forget, firstly, people, we're going live on both channels, Hollie's Hotspurs and AlbertJTV. So don't think about it, people. Smash the like button right through the ballpark for AlbertJTV and Hollie's Hotspurs. And also, this will go out on the audio platform, so you'll see this on Spotify and also on the Apple download. So you can hear AlbertJTV's dulcet tones and Hollie's Hotspur's dulcet tones. Hollie, my co-host, lots of planning, as you all know.
Yeah.
How have you been, my dear Hollie?
Not too bad. Like I say, I'm looking forward to this. Like I say, it's nice not to talk about Tottenham Arsenal. It'll be nice to talk about obviously the Euros coming up because we always have a good fun time when we do this. I'm looking forward to number 3 tournament. So yeah, I'm excited.
Well, hopefully there'll be there might not be much more heartache to come. As I know, Hollie, you know, we've covered 3 tournaments now for the men's and the women's, and we're looking for that winning feeling in the final. We might get it. We never know. But people, if you're watching this live now, like I said, smash the like button. And if you don't watch it live and you watch this back on the rerun, smash the like button anyway. And if you haven't got time to watch us on video format, people, you have the option of listening to us on audio as well. So you'll have many varieties to hear. So how are we going to start the show now? Now, firstly, our first guest would have been assistant editor at the Mirror. And also, Darren is the president of the Sports Journalism Association as well. But unfortunately, he couldn't make it live with us, people, unfortunately. And the life of a journo, very busy. Me and Hollie have many discussions. But Darren has been kind enough to send us a pre-record. I think he would have done this before the information came out about Ten Hag staying at United. So please bear that in mind. So all the listeners, you'll hear Darren's voice over. Me and Hollie have put some pre-questions to him already. So we're going to run the video and then me and Hollie will discuss particular points of what Darren Lewis has said. Big up Darren Lewis. So let me find the video, Hollie, because that will be very helpful. And we are going to watch Darren's talking points right now.
Hi guys, thanks for having me on the show. I'm not really that worried about the age of the England team. I kind of feel like that they're a young, vibrant, exciting team. We've watched them all the way through the Premier League and Champions League and Europa League season, and they are players that we've really seen come of age for their club sides. And I'm less worried about that, or should I say not as worried about that as I am about the defence, because we've got a fabulous side going forward, but we saw against Iceland we are very vulnerable at the back. It's a very makeshift defence, and generally the sides that tend to win tournaments do have a fantastic defence. So yeah, the age doesn't bother me at all. It is the fact that at the back, if we come up against a good side, maybe even an average side, an average to middling side, they could catch us out at the back. I actually think this is Gareth Southgate's last tournament. I can't see him managing England at another major tournament. I think all the noises suggest that he feels he's done enough now, and it's a lose. I wouldn't say lose-lose. It's not a lose-lose because obviously he's done superbly well to change the culture for England players and to make the England experience really enjoyable for players. So, but what I do think is that if he loses with what is a talented squad, then he'll know that there'll be calls for him to go. And if he were to win it, it might well be that he decides, look, it's not going to get any better than this. Now, it might do. They might win the World Cup, but that's a bigger ask, I think, than this time around. So I think this will be his last major tournament with England anyway. And I think the succession planning should already be underway. Who should take over? Well, Eddie Howe's a really good candidate, builds teams from the back. When Newcastle had players fit, theirs was the best defence in the country. So I could see a scenario where he might get the call. And as we've seen with Southgate, and even in that wonderful run for Wales with Chris Coleman, sometimes it's not about the A-list manager that you bring in. Sometimes it's about the manager that you bring in that is able to really get a good camaraderie, good feeling, almost like a club atmosphere within the squad. So, I wouldn't have any problems with Eddie Howe taking over from Gareth Southgate. Mauricio Pochettino is quite an interesting one because we saw with Jose Mourinho talking about the fact that England had sounded him out about managing the national side, that they're not averse to stepping outside the box. And I'm fascinated with Pochettino because for me, it's a no-brainer in terms of Manchester United. I am amazed they haven't moved for him already. He's got a fabulous record building from the back with young teams. So I'm amazed that Manchester United haven't gone for him. If it were to be the case that Southgate were to leave, personally, I like Eddie Howe, but personally my number one choice would be Mauricio Pochettino. I'll just answer one more that you haven't got here, but I'll answer it anyway. If it were not for the fact that England have got a really bad defensive problem, I would have gone for England to win. I have to sadly change my mind. I think it's going to be France. I think they've got a really good, strong unit. They come into the tournament in fabulous form. They cruise through qualifying, and they've just got so many good players, so many good permutations as well. I'd give the Netherlands a squeak as well because at the back they've got this so strong. Van der Ven, Van Dijk and De Ligt in a back three. Maybe Jeremy Frimpong and Nathan Ake playing as wing backs. And that defensive base, I always say good defences win you tournaments. And I think with that defensive base, and then obviously up front, they've got Cody Gakpo, Memphis Depay. In midfield, they've got Ryan Gravenberch as well. Koop Miners, who's had a really good season with Atalanta. I think they could be dark horses, Netherlands. But sadly, I don't think England are going to win. I think we'll enjoy the ride, but I don't think they're going to win.
And there we have it, people. Massive shout out to Darren. Thank you for giving us your time. He's a busy guy, man. Hollie will testify for that. So for him to give us a little snippet and his insight is fantastic. So Hollie, let's pick through the bones of that, man. So we'll talk about in terms of the potential inexperience. I actually had the graph. I can tell you now off the top of my head, I think England going into the tournament in terms of, I think, age sort of experience are the third youngest. So I want to come to you really. I personally, the defense has been an issue for England for me in the last three tournaments under Southgate. You know, we saw back in the World Cup in Russia, Kyle Walker having to play sort of in the back three, obviously because of his pace, but I know he's not had many minutes, but I would have taken Jared Branthwaite personally because one thing England have been very good at is set pieces. Maguire, they will miss that. They will miss him for that. He's a man mountain. He's colossal. He wins headers galore. I would have taken Branthwaite because he's a big unit. I think he's about 6 foot 6'7", and also as well, Holly, he's a left-sided centre back, which England don't have. So where are you sort of in terms of what Darren was talking about in regards to him not being so much worried about the inexperience, but more so the defensive side of it?
No, I think it's spot on. I think it's kind of, I kind of like the fact that we have got a very young kind of squad. And yeah, there is a little bit of that naivety and that inexperience, but I think it also brings a bit of hunger and a bit of they want to go and do something really good for the team. And in terms of obviously the defense, I still don't understand how Dunk was taken over Braithwaite. Like, for me, I would have taken him. I think he's shone really well, especially in his appearances in the Premier League. So it is a strange one, but I'm also kind of glad that Southgate's kind of gone away from this. He picks them because he likes them, in terms of that's just his go-to players. So it's a little bit nicer that we've had a little bit of a different and a balance. I didn't have to predict who was going to be in the side this time for definite, which was nice. But I definitely echo what Darren Lewis is saying. I think that's just a theme in terms of our defence, really. Yes,
it's funny you mention that, because I think Darren actually I think he tweeted about it after the England squad got announced, and I do find it really, I find it fascinating, actually. Obviously, Harry Maguire didn't make the squad, and yet I still saw people complaining that he wasn't there. And I'm like, but if you look at his club appearances for Manchester United in about 2.5, 3 years, he's not played a lot of football. But I think the biggest worry for me, Holly, is the left-back situation. Because no disrespect, I know Kieran Trippier is very experienced and he's a right back normally by trade, and he can play at left back, and he has played there for England before, but that's not where I want him. Luke Shaw, I think, if I've got this off from the top of my head, people, I'm sure they'll put it in the chat or when they watch this back, I don't think he's kicked a ball since February. And he apparently did train the other day, apparently. Also, I think John Stones missed training is there as well, from what I heard. So you're like, I think the left back situation is a bit of an issue. I know Joe Gomez can play there as well, but for the balance of the side and what's already missing, is that a big issue for you? Obviously, Luke Shaw hasn't played since February, and to bring him in for the first game on Sunday, is that a risk, or could you understand if he played to give more balance to the side?
I think we do need balance. Again, it's a risk whether you play him or you don't play him, especially with that imbalance, and then him not having much game time behind his belt coming into the tournament. It's just a difficult one to play, isn't it? And again, it's annoying. We're going into a major tournament. Not that we're favourites, but we're up and amongst it, especially with the talent we have going forward. And it's just a bit annoying to be like, we've kind of already gone into this tournament with a stumbling block in that kind of sense. And I'm sure that the players are going to be able to adapt and this, that, and the other. But you think yourself, you've actually had a good player that would play in that position, that's had these minutes throughout the Premier League campaign or wherever in the world they play their football, you'd put yourself in a better stead. So it's strange and annoying. We'll just have to see how it kind of plays out. But for you, Albert, do you find, I know you've echoed the fact that you also find the defence a bit of a worry and a struggle. Are you kind of on the foot that those players are going to be okay to adapt that quickly coming into a tournament? Do you think, I know we've spoken about the inexperience, but do you think some of those experienced players like Luke Shaw is going to come in and be like, I can do a job there regardless?
It's hard because if I look at this England setup in terms of the last few tournaments, right, if I go through the team, so Pickford's his mainstay, John Stones 2, Declan Rice 3, Harry Kane 4, I'd say probably Saka 5, who's played consistently for England. So you're going to have a lot of players, probably in the first 11, I'd say, that have not played together for in quite a few of the England games leading up into the last, probably, I know, the last 6 months to a year, for example. So that might be a bit of an issue. I think England offensively are hot. They look good. I mean, the options are there. I think the slight issue you have is where some of the players, where they were in position-wise, where they play for their clubs, i.e. Foden, where he picks up pockets of space for Manchester City, it won't be the same for England. He might not even, if he plays, he'll probably play on the left of the three. I would always have him in the 10 role, but the way Southgate has managed the side over quite a few tournaments and looking at the personnel, the players, I think Foden will start. He might not necessarily start in the position that he may start in, but I want to come back to you quickly. I just want to ask you, obviously the likes of Rashford haven't gone. Obviously Maguire hasn't gone. With the Grealish debate, where do you sit with that? Is you surprised or not really?
I don't know. It's difficult. I think because we've got so many great attacking players, like you said, mentioned in the likes of Foden, you've got Harry Kane, you've got, I had to get that one in there. It's
Of course you did.
And again, I know we talk about Grealish, but Maddison has been left behind. I think because there's so much talent going forward, there's going to be players that are going to miss out. And with Grealish, it's very hit and miss with him because he can bring a bit of magic when he comes off of the bench. But would I want him?
Yeah, we
would
don't
I
have
want
someone.
him over? I don't know, another player that's gone in his place. Like you're never going to choose Grealish over Jude. Like that. That's just how it's going to go down. And it's the likes with Maddison. I don't think, and I know you spoke to me about this off stream, but Maddison hasn't been his best since he's had his injury. And although he lighted the world up at the start of the season, if we're talking about form and going into a major tournament, do you really want Maddison in that kind of that play around? I know I've got a little bit off tangent, but for me, I probably would have, keep Grealish at home. That's probably going to annoy quite a few people. But yes, he's a different animal when he comes off the bench. But do I want someone that's going to produce that from the start? Probably.
It's kind of what you said. That I was quite surprised by the reaction of when some of the Twitter faithful on the platform, because he's picked his favourites for years of players that are not been regularly playing. I'll be honest with you, right? I wasn't shocked Maddison didn't go, and I think Maddison summed it up in his tweet personally. I wasn't shocked that Jack Grealish didn't go, but I could see why he might have gone. I wasn't shocked that Rashford got left at home. So, I was quite surprised by some of the reaction from some of the England faithful, or the ones that want England to do well, in terms of Southgate actually picking players in form. Your Cole Palmers, your Fodens. I think I'm missing that off the top of my head. I'm trying to think now. It's gone off the top of my head. Barry Eze, who we'll touch on. There's a lot of players. So I was quite surprised by the reaction. I have to be honest with you. But I'm going to sort of go to the next talking point. Before I get to that next talking point, people, as I alluded to at the start of the stream, smash the like button through the ballpark for both Hollie's Hotspurs and AlbertJTV. And if you might be watching live on Twitter as well, reshare, people, reshare. Hollie, let's come back to my next thing. So Darren mentioned about the question we posed to him. Sorry. I was glad to get his input on that. It was Gareth Southgate's tenure. Now, we did the World Cup in Qatar, and I remember you clearly saying he has to win the Euros in Germany, in terms of whether he stays or goes. But my own personal belief, I've said this is nothing new. This is not knee-jerk, people, footballing community. I think 3 major tournaments as a national manager, I think that's more than enough personally. I know the FA love him and want to keep him. I think irrespective of whatever happens in the Euros, I think they want to keep him. But obviously, if England bummed at the tournament, then it's a different conversation, isn't it? But I personally would, like I said, I'd like to see someone else get the reins and take this group of players into this tournament from a personal point of view. What have you made of his tenure as England manager in terms of pros and cons? And we'll talk about successes afterwards.
I think it's been all right. Again, I think because for me, I'm kind of in the same boat in terms of, because we've got so much talent, you only have this talent for a certain amount of time. And there's only a certain amount of time these tournaments come round. And time is running out for some players like Harry Kane, in a sense that he's probably only got one more shot after this in a major tournament. And if Southgate doesn't tend to, am I going to be hopeful that we're going to go win the next one? I don't know. And again, it goes back to that thing in terms of, he did choose his favourites, even if his favourites were out of form or out of character, not playing the way they should be in their clubs. Okay, now he started to change his behaviour in this Euros, but it's been a long time bloody coming for that to happen. And I think this is not the last roll of the dice, because like you say, the FA will probably keep him. But I think to keep the fans on side, to keep the England fans happy, we have to go out there and show what we're made of, kind of like we did in the previous one in the World Cup, but actually get it over the line this time, because the talent we've got going forward, and I know we talk about our defence, it kind of outweighs the defence in terms of there is so much talent. And if we walk away from another tournament without winning it, maybe I sound a bit too arrogant, but it needs to be done sooner rather than later, I think. And I think this is Southgate's kind of end game from a fan's point of view, I think.
Yeah, he's been, for some of the quotes I've been seeing him talking about, this probably best chance or last chance. Listen, we've never seen England win a tournament in our lifetime. I mean, to see them get into a final was unbelievable, to be honest. So, back in Euros in this country, but there's some good teams there, man. But I sort of don't want to keep sort of on the England track for the moment. We will talk about other teams as well, people. Don't get too alarmed. Don't get too alarmed. But in terms of, we talked about potential successors. Now, I've said this for quite a while, and Darren's alluded to one of the guys he's mentioned, or two people, in terms of Eddie Howe and Pochettino. I think if you're talking about English candidates, to me, there's only two. And that's obviously Eddie Howe, as Darren mentioned in his video segment, and Graham Potter. He's turned, if you look at it from the Graham Potter point of view, I know I think he's been linked with going back to Brighton apparently, but whether that happened, I'm not too sure. He has turned down quite a few vacancies that's been offered to. I think Ajax is one of them. There was also talk about Leicester at one point. That's before, I think that's before Enzo Maresca went there, but no, he's now gone to Chelsea. I think in terms of England coaches, I think they're probably the two most viable. I would probably watch their managerial careers over the next sort of 3 or 4 years in terms of like a two that comes to my head at the moment, Hollie, probably Gary O'Neill and also Rob Edwards, but they're quite young. I mean, Rob Edwards is quite young, so but it'd be interesting to see what they do in the next sort of 4-5 years, I'd say. But where are you in terms of potential successors?
I mean, the fact when I heard Darren say Pochettino, obviously the Tottenham within me kind of took over.
Calm down. I know it's hard for you, but just try to be rational, for goodness sake.
I don't think I'd want Pochettino purely because every kind of job he's been in, obviously in the Premier League in terms of Tottenham and Chelsea, he hasn't really done a lot. I don't know. I know his football is nice to watch. It doesn't really get you over the line. And okay, Southgate's football isn't nice to watch and it's not enjoyable at times, but it does get things done until you get to finals, which I guess you could kind of talk about Poch in the Kane sort of sense. But I think maybe I'm just being a bit biased. But I am kind of on the front. Yeah. I'm kind of on the front that I would like another English manager to come in, just because it'd be quite nice to kind of see that happen again. Obviously, it's done all right with Southgate, but I just kind of like that to grow again with another English manager. And don't get me wrong, Poch probably doing an all right job, but it's just very difficult for me for obvious reasons. But how about you? I mean, obviously you don't have the biased nature with you, so could you see
exactly, Hollie?
That's why you're better at answering this question. Do you think that we'd be successful under Poch if he's the England manager, or do you think we'd be better going down, like you've already said, with Graham Potter and etc.?
He's got a big advantage over the likes of Sven-Göran Eriksson, who came and took the job, Fabio Capello, who neither of them had worked in England before. That would be a massive advantage, Hollie, and he's managing this country. Southampton, Tottenham, obviously you can talk about his spell at Chelsea, but they did have a good run to the back end of last season. And if you look at the talent pool of English players, and we're obviously talking in hypotheticals here, I think people probably might have a better chance of, I say succeeding. Obviously, if you're talking about succeeding, it's about winning a tournament, and they don't come around very often. So, I mean,
you've only got one shot.
Yeah. It's interesting because you mentioned the English coaches thing. And I wouldn't say there's loads of them out there. I mean, Lampard hasn't done too great since he's come into management. Steven Gerrard, you could also talk. Yes, okay, done well at Rangers. And Villa started well, but I'm not too sure. Is he Saudi Arabia now? Is he Steven Gerrard? So there's not loads and loads of options. That's why I think there's only 2 viable options personally. Hollie, I'll tell you what we'll do. We're going to hold the sort of tournament winners and dark horses because we've given ours. We'll tell ours at the end of the show. But we have our first guest, which I'm pleased to get Callum back on. Fantastic football writer and an excellent commentator too. Hollie, could you bring in Callum McFadden?
Boom.
Callum, welcome. Long time, my friend. Good to see you, man.
But it's always a pleasure, Albert, and thanks for the invite. Really looking forward to it.
No, glad to get you on. Glad to pick your brains. I'm going to kick off, mate. Obviously, the fantastic Scotland are in the tournament. 2 Euros on the bounce, my friend. I don't want to steal my amazing co-host's thunder. So, Hollie, fire in your first question to Callum.
I'm glad you've done that because that's my last one on my list. So obviously, like Albert mentioned, obviously, how are you kind of feeling going into the Euros, and how are you kind of feeling, obviously, facing the hosts as well in the first game?
I think the first game's obviously going to be nerve-wracking. Always is a major tournament, especially for a nation like ourselves. You know, we've only qualified for our second Euros now in the bounce. We hadn't been at a tournament since 1998 before Euro 2020, so it's only our second in a row. You know, it's been a long time coming to get to this point. We obviously played the opening game in the World Cup of '98 against Brazil and France, so the nation, obviously not these players or staff, but we have experience of a nation of doing that before. And what I would say is I think this Scotland team will be stronger for their experiences in 2020. Obviously, the Czech Republic game was such a massive disappointment in that campaign at home. Patrick Schick scored the phenomenal goal from the halfway line that deflated us. The draw at Wembley, you know, was fantastic, but then you play Croatia and Modric shows his class and you go out. But I do think genuinely that this squad will be stronger for that experience. And I think because of that experience, they won't be fazed by the Germany game. I think they'll relish it. I think it'll be a really difficult evening for us, as I think it will be when most teams play Germany at this tournament. But I certainly think that we'll be more prepared and the players will be less daunted than they were in the Euro 2020 because, as I say, that burden of history of 22 years without qualifying is gone. You know, it's the second tournament in a row, and I think the players will relish the opportunity.
No, well said. Callum, just quickly ask you. Obviously, Lyndon Dykes is out of the tournament. That's a blow, man. It's a big blow. Are you concerned where the goals are going to come from? And also, as well, 2-part question. In terms of the makeup of the squad, was there any surprise inclusions or exclusions from the squad for you?
I think in terms of the inclusions, obviously Ben Doak's now out of the squad because he got injured, but him being included was a surprise. Obviously, initially because he's 17, he's not really played since Christmas, and obviously an incredibly exciting young player. So I was actually really enthused the fact that he was in the squad. Unfortunately, he's now out with injury. In terms of obvious exclusions, I think the fact that Craig Gordon has not went as one of the goalkeepers is a surprise. And obviously, he's not going to start. He wouldn't have started if he went. Angus Gunn's undoubtedly the number one. But he's taken Xander Clark and Liam Kelly as the other 2 goalkeepers, and they've got less than 10 caps between them, whereas Craig's now got 75 caps. And I personally just felt that even if he was the third choice goalkeeper, his experience of the national team over, you know, the last 15 years or so would be invaluable to the group. So I was surprised he didn't go. And to answer the question on Dykes, you know, I think that's a massive blow for us because, you know, he's a real focal point for Scotland. He's always, since he's come into the squad under Steve Clarke, been, you know, a real player that can hold the ball up, but he can also make sure he can spin and get into the box and get on the end of things. And I think now that Dykes isn't in the squad also due to injury, I think Scott McTominay, who scored an awful lot of goals for us in qualification, becomes even more vital because if Scotland are going to score with crosses into the box, McTominay is going to be key. Lawrence Shankland, who will probably be the starting striker, he's just off the back of a great season in the Scottish Premiership with Hearts. He was the player of the year in Scotland. He was a top scorer last year. He's been linked with big money moves. Tells the Rangers have been credited with their interest teams in England as well. He's previously played in Belgian football, so he's got good pedigree. Whether he will be able to lead the line for Scotland as effectively as Dykes did, I don't quite know. But I think, as I say, he merits the opportunity, and it'll be interesting to see how things go. But it will be a blow that Dykes is missing for sure.
No, fair play, because I saw that injury. I was like, oh no, man, that is not good news for Scotland, man. Absolutely not. I know Andy Robertson, did he miss training recently, Callum, or is he okay?
Yeah, so Andy Robertson was taken out of training, but it was just a precaution, thankfully, and apparently all is okay. I'm sure, obviously, we'll see for sure on Friday night. But when I saw that news as well, Albert, I was shaking with nerves. But BBC correspondent Nick McPhee put a post out. He was at the training session saying that the Scotland staff assured him it was just a precaution.
Okay, cool. I'm going to bring Hollie in quick in a moment. I just want to ask you a quick question, Callum, about Steve Clarke. I think he's appointed in May 2019. I think, is he signed a new contract to 2026? What have you made of his time coming in the Scotland manager and obviously second tournament now? What's the pros and cons you've seen with him since his time at Scotland manager?
Do I think the pros of Steve Clarke is that he, especially when we got to the Euros of 2020, it was based a lot on organisation and defensive structure. And, I don't think there's any shame in that, because Alec McLeish was in his second spell in charge of Scotland prior to Steve Clarke coming in. He did a good job to obviously secure the Nations League pathway to the Euros, but there was never a convincing style of play with Alex McLeish when he was in charge for the second spell. We lost over in Kazakhstan quite convincingly, which was a massive blow. But Steve's came in, the first campaign, as I say, a lot about defensive solidity. That's where Lyndon Dykes was crucial, because Scotland were defending well and using Dykes as an outball to, hold the ball up, get players up the pitch. But what I would say to his credit is he's moved it to be a more attack-minded team. The last campaign there, beating teams like Spain. If you watched that game at Hampden, I know Rodri complained after it, but that wasn't the smash and grab that it maybe would have been 15 years ago when we beat France in the campaign under Walter Smith and Alex McLeish in his first spell. I felt that we played some really good football in that night. Players like John McGinn, Callum McGregor, Billy Gilmore. These are midfielders that want to get on the ball and play good football, and that is the way that Scotland have played. They've got Robertson bombing forward down the left-hand side. Kieran Tierney, of course, can add to that. And I should have mentioned before, the big loss for this tournament is Aaron Hickey on the right-hand side. Yes. He, under Steve Clarke, you had Robertson going down the left, Hickey going down the right. And it was massive for us, to have that out ball with the fullbacks when those midfielders who are so good in the ball had it, that they could bring those fullbacks into play. And obviously that would help Dykes or whoever's leading the line. The fact that Hickey's out means that it's going to be Ross McCrory or Anthony Ralston probably playing at right wing back. Neither, again, have had a lot of caps. Anthony Ralston's back up at Celtic. Ross McCrory's playing well at Bristol City, but he's obviously had his injury problems. So that's going to be a big challenge for Scotland. But, I suppose these players should be fearless and relish the challenge. But just to conclude in Clarke, I think that I'd be honest with you, I can't really see too many cons at the moment. I think he came in, we hadn't qualified from a tournament since 1998. He's got back-to-back European Championship qualifications. Yes, we missed out in the last World Cup. Let's try and get to the next World Cup. But for me, if you told me when Steve Clarke came in, you would get 2 major international tournaments, I would have bit your hand off. I would have been delighted. So no complaints from me.
No, fair play, Callum. Callum, I want to bring Hollie in because I'm sure I'll ask you England related.
I was going to flip it because obviously we're talking about managers and me and Albert were talking about Southgate before you came on, Callum. But obviously I kind of want to get your kind of point of view on Southgate in terms of what have you made of his time with England? How do you think he's going to do? Well, how do you think him and England are going to do in this tournament?
I think Gareth Southgate over the piece so far has done a good job. Again, I think if you said to any England fan after the Sam Allardyce situation that the next manager is going to come in and you're going to reach a major championship final and you're potentially, obviously, you're going to reach the semis of the World Cup, but you're going to reach a major final. I think people would have taken that and said, well, we'll give that a go. And I think the thing for me with Southgate is, and I don't want to come across as being negative towards him, but I just think that he's done a really good job so far. But I get the feeling that there's going to be that maybe this could be the tournament where things don't go as well for him. I say, I was a Scotland fan. I don't wish that on England. I'm not one of these people that completely wishes negativity in others. May the best team win the tournament, whoever it may be. But I just think, he's got to the semis of the World Cup. He got to the European Championship final. He got to the Nations League final. I just feel that everything's went relatively plain sailing for him. And he's got a really good team. It's probably going to be his last tournament. So I think England are going to do extremely well, or they're going to not be extremely poor, but they're going to fall well below expectations. I don't think there's going to be a middle ground where you get to a semi-final. I think England can either go all the way to the final and maybe win it, or they'll maybe go out at the quarters. I don't see it being a middle ground. I think it's either going to go really well for Southgate, or it's going to be a bit flat and they'll replace him. And that's just the way I see it. But as I say, may the best team win the Euros, and England certainly have got players that I really admire. Jude Bellingham, I think, is a fantastic player. Declan Rice is doing really well at Arsenal. You look at the forward options, Harry Kane, people mock Harry Kane for not winning a trophy at the moment in Munich, but he still scored an abundance of goals, and that's not all down to Harry Kane, and his time to win trophies at Bayern is going to come again. So for me, England's front six is probably up there with France, has been the best in the tournament. The biggest concern I have for England, and I don't hide this, is the defence. I just don't think the defence is strong enough compared to some of the other nations. However, if the forward players can do the business, you might be able to concede 1 goal or 2 goals a game, because you might be able to score 3 or 4. So you have to see the positives as well.
No, well said, Charlie. Shall I come in, Holly? Shall I come in, Holmes?
Go for it.
Callum, we got you for another 5 minutes. I know you're on a deadline, mate, but we're going to try and squeeze in 2 more questions. The first question, I shall come to who's your winners for the tournament, and who's your dark horses?
The winners, I'll be honest with you, I think I've said this, and anybody that's asked me, I've said the same thing. I think it'll be France, and the reason I say France is I think the abundance of talent that they've got is just, absolutely sublime. You think of the players that they're able to leave out of their squad, never mind be in it, and that just emphasises how strong they are. For me, Kylian Mbappe is the best individual player that will play in this tournament. I think he showed in the World Cup final with that hat-trick that he scored that the big occasion does not faze him in the slightest. He's just secured his dream move to Real Madrid. He's going to be coming into this tournament on a personal high, and I think that makes France even more dangerous than they normally are. They've got great players. They've got Griezmann. Obviously, I've said Mbappe. Yeah. Defensively, they've got Hernandez as a fullback. You've got Koundé. You've got Mike Maignan, the goalkeeper from AC Milan. They've got so much stability and strength and depth off the bench and in the tournament itself. So for me, France would be the team that I think will win it. Although, if you were to ask me other teams that I think will have a chance, I think England certainly do have a chance. As I've said, that front six is formidable. And I actually think Germany, which some people maybe would disagree with, but home nation, Florian Wirtz has had a superb season at Bayer Leverkusen. Jamal Musiala, another exciting young player. They've still got players like Thomas Müller in and around the squad who are there to give their experience. And, I think Germany will go quite close to winning it.
No, well said, Callum. Well said. One quick thing. I'm going to leave Holly with the last question in terms of a particular subject. But is there any players? That's one thing I love about covering tournament football is that some of the talent that is out there. I know you've got the young kid at Spain. Is it Yamin Lamel, who's only 16?
Yeah.
Did you think he's going to get any minutes, or is it just a case of easing him in the tournament experience, or do you think he's good enough to actually play for Spain during this tournament?
I think he's good enough to play for Spain. He's already played, he's scored for Spain. He's already shown that he can perform at that level. And I think Spain are one of the teams that are interesting. They're in a situation where, they're not necessarily considered one of the favourites the way they were maybe 10 years ago when they were obviously winning Euro 2008, 2012, the World Cup 2010. So I think they're a team that's in a strange way, seems strange saying it about Spain. I feel that they're going under the radar a bit, and that might play into their hands. I meant to say as well, you asked me dark horse and I didn't tell you. A team that I think will do really well will be from a lower level is Austria. I know they've got a tough group. I've got a feeling they'll progress through. I think Ralf Rangnick has had a positive impact there. He's got them playing as a unit. So I think they'll get through their group. And in terms of a dark horse to win from a team I didn't mention, Portugal's the other team. I suppose they're very established, but I think for me, France, Germany and England would be the favourites, but I think your Spain and Portugal, maybe even Croatia, will be the dark horses behind that.
Before I quickly go on to I've column, because Callum, I've written this down for all our guests in terms of winners and dark horses. So dark horses, are you going to go Austria or Portugal?
Dark horse to win would be Portugal, but I want to pick out Austria because I think Austria will have a good tournament. I don't think they'll go anywhere near doing a Greece and winning it, but I want to pick them out as a team that I think will do well. So I'm going to say Austria.
Yeah, I said Austria a few years ago and they made the Euros and they absolutely were awful. So I'm not going to say it again. But Hollie, come with the last question. Callum's been a fantastic guest, but ask him your final question.
I've saved the best till last, and that is, who would you say is going to be your top goal scorer of the tournament? Because I know you said about Mbappe, but who would you say, pin it down, who's going to be the top goal scorer of the whole tournament?
Here's the odds as well, Callum. Here's the odds, mate.
I think Mbappe obviously will be in with a great shout. I'm actually going to go for a curveball. I'm going to say Jude Bellingham. In the sense that I think England might play in a few games that are quite tight, especially if they progress through the group. And, Bellingham's shown at Real Madrid already this season that although he's a midfielder, he can pop up the goals in big occasions. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's the sort of player that's a match winner and scores 4 or 5 goals in the tournament, which could be enough to be top scorer. Because I think France, although they've got Mbappe, England, although you've got Harry Kane, I think the goals will be spread out and someone like Bellingham could come to the fore.
Callum, top man. Callum, tell the people where they can find you and what is your next project. What will you be doing next, my friend?
Well, before I tell you that, just once again, thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure, Albert. Hollie, thank you so much. You can follow me on Twitter at Callum7McFadden. There'll be more interviews coming up on World Football Index, more match reports from games across the UK and abroad going into next season. I'm not covering the Euros as such this summer. I'm looking forward to really enjoying it as a fan. Hopefully Scotland can get through the group. From your points of view, I wish England all the best. I hope you do well. And I just hope it's a real festival of football because in 2020 with the Euros, there was a few controversies, with security at Wembley and all this. I hope we're not talking about things off the pitch. I hope we're talking about a real festival of football that fans can enjoy and we get an exciting tournament and may the best team win. I'm looking forward to it.
Callum, top man. YouTube community, so watch this now. Follow Callum and Callum will catch up soon, mate. Speak to you soon.
Please do, anytime. All the best.
Take care, bro. Thank you, mate. Cheers, mate. Hollie, that was a fantastic Callum. I've had Callum on my channel before. Very insightful, fantastic views about football. So, class guy. People, as I like to say, obliterate the like button. Also, if you don't know what to do by now, this is what you should do for Hollie's Hotspurs and AlbertJTV. We'll be back after this short little intro. And there you have it, people. Even Hollie liked it as well. I showed it to her before we went live, and she loved it. She's popping up and down in the background. Hollie, the guests are coming thick and fast. Let's give them a proper intro. We've had this fantastic man on before. Jack Lacey-Hatton from Mirror Sport, Chief Women's Football Reporter. Bring Jack in, Hollie.
Boom.
Jack, welcome back, man. Good to get you on, mate.
Hi, both. Thanks for having me back on. And I was thinking it must be a major tournament if I'm back on a Zoom call with you two again. Nice to be here, and looking forward to what should be a great Euros.
Jack, before I get Hollie to ask the first question, I have to say this, Jack. I'm very, very impressed you've got the ball chart in the background.
You know what? Honestly, genuinely not intentional until about 5 minutes before I thought, that could work nicely. Just in case because we're all trying to at the moment think about who's going to play, permutations for the latter stages. So I may need to consult this over as I think about my predictions for the next few weeks. You got to have a wall chart, haven't you?
Yeah, that Jack, that is very, very true. I know Hollie's got one somewhere in that beautiful place of hers, and I've got one somewhere behind me somewhere. I can't find it, but Hollie, fire to Jack your first question for the fantastic Jack, please.
Well, the running theme tonight has been talking about Gareth Southgate and obviously the players he's taken on the plane. Now, for you, obviously, it's a little bit different this year because he hasn't necessarily taken his favourites. But we kind of a bit taken back with who he took on the plane and who he kind of left behind.
I really was surprised, actually, Hollie. I guess that's a recurring theme from hearing about what you've been saying tonight. I think that we all kind of got to a point with Gareth Southgate where there were certain players in the squad who I wouldn't say, I'm sure he wouldn't have stuck by anyone if they'd had a complete collapse, so to speak, in terms of their club form. But there were players who, he would often stand by them if they were having a rough time at their club. Obviously, that's been the case with Harry Maguire. That was the case, I think, when Jordan Henderson was perhaps in a little bit in and out of the Liverpool team a bit more towards the end of his time there. so that I did think he sort of he did. I suppose the phrase "had his favourites" is a bit of a loaded question. I think to balance it, international football, it's hard to get that cohesion and that chemistry when you have so little time with your players on the training pitch. That's just it's a fact that you can't just base everything on what they've done over the last 2 months for their clubs. You've got to try and build some sort of cohesion over a long period of time. So I kind of can get where he's coming from when he does stick by some of these players. But yeah, I was definitely surprised. It does feel like this squad is more sort of a side that's been based on who's played well this season, rather than sort of looking at the last sort of 2 to 3 years as a whole. I guess that's reflected in the fact that there's so many new players in this England squad. For so many of them, it's going to be their first major tournament. But the flip side of that is obviously they don't have the baggage of the last few exits, and hopefully that from an England perspective, the guys that have been in the squad a bit longer, they can nurture them and guide them through the tournament experience.
No, Jack, well said. Jack, I've got a question for you, mate. I've got a question for you. I know there's been talk about England defensive wise, but I want to concentrate more on the attacking element of it. There's one player I'm absolutely delighted he's in the squad. I'll give you a little running intro, Jack, before I sort of bring this man up on screen. But this actually, I had this sort of, when I started my channel, I think within the first 6 months. So it would have been the season that Havertz joined Chelsea, Willian joined Arsenal. And I did a show where I had a couple of guests on. I said to them, there's one player that you should look out for in the Premier League. And they all looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, I'm going to get him on screen, Jack, because I'm going to bring you in very, very quickly. He's going to come up on screen in a minute, people. Don't be patient. If I can find the picture. Where's it gone? It was here. Where's he gone now? There he is. AlbertJTV. When I think of him, I like my sport, generally speaking. So I'm a big tennis fan. When I used to watch Roger Federer play, he's just a beautiful player to watch. I think that with Eze, when I watched him play football, I would absolutely walk across hot coals to bring him to the red carpet at Arsenal. And I think he's a player that England don't actually have, if I'm going to be honest with you. I want to get your thoughts on what you've made of him since he's come to the Premier League and obviously his inclusion in the England squad.
Yeah, I mean, he's just like, he's taken to the Premier League so comfortably. I think he's one of those players that sort of looks, he plays like he's older than he is. He sort of plays like like he's got sort of 400 league appearances already. He's got that confidence, that swagger. I mean, to be honest, I actually thought before, so the first friendly against Bosnia last week, before the squad was announced, I kind of thought, he might be one of the ones that's in danger, not because of he's done anything wrong, purely because he's not been in the England squad for like some of the others, and as we talked about, did sort of see Jack Grealish as like a popular member of the squad, as well as perhaps one of players Southgate would lean more towards. But I'm so pleased Eze's in, because in that friendly alone, he just showed. I think I watched him sort of 20 minutes that game and just thought, no, he's got to be in. He I don't think you can. He offers you something so different to a lot of the other players in that sort of position. His close control, his dribbling is just like, particularly against teams that are going to sit in and defend deep against us, which obviously at some point in this tournament, England will come across that. I think he could be vital to unlocking those defenses, and I'm really glad that Southgate's gone for him, and it looks like a nice balance now as potentially Anthony Gordon as well in his first tournament. Cole Palmer's obviously in I was going to say the form of his life, but if he keeps it, maybe he'll go to another level. Who knows? But it's not. They're not three bad players to be bringing off the bench potentially.
Yeah, I love Eze. Like I said, people thought I was crazy when I mentioned him. I said no. I said trust me, because it was. I've got a guy I used to work with as a QPR fan. He said to me, Albert, trust me, this guy is a player. And I remember Les Ferdinand spoke about him so highly. He said he should have gone to the squad. He should have been the England squad in the last Euros. I mean, in terms of when we had it in this country. Yeah. So I love Eze. I know Hollie obviously likes Eze as well, and talking about going on Eze watch and all that kind of thing. Hollie carved that, but let me come to Hollie for the next question to fire at you, Jack, mate.
Well, to be fair, when I was on Eze watch at Selhurst Park, he was at the Tottenham training ground. So you never know. It could be happening.
Hollie, stop that terrible talk for this stream. Stop
Sorry,
it.
I'm going back to England. Going back
He's
to
a South London boy now, guys. He's not
He
North
is.
London. I'm sorry about
Oh, I'm
No.
holding out hope.
that.
No, I'll bring it back to England because I'm getting sidetracked. But obviously we have our opening game on Sunday. What are your kind of thoughts going into that game?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see how this team sort of comes together because like we said, there are some surprises in there. So I'm not particularly I'm not hugely confident about overall going on and winning the tournament, but I do think it's one of those tournaments a bit similar to the last Euros in a way, where if we get that first win, and you don't have to go out there and sort of win 3 or 4-0 and play ridiculously expansive football and smash the other team off the park. You've just got to get that first win, get a little bit of momentum and belief in the team, and create sort of a feel good factor around the squad, which I think that that this England team is more than capable of beating Serbia. All due respect to them, that there won't be any pushovers. I'm sure they'll still give England a difficult game. But yeah, I'm excited to see who he goes for in midfield and how he sort of works out that conundrum of you can't play Bellingham and Foden. I don't think both of them in as old school number 10s. I guess I think he's going to have to sort of do some work there. But that again, I think that's part of that is just such a fundamental part of international football. You can't always name said 11 players in their best position that they've been playing in all season. Someone might have to be a little bit, show a bit of versatility, and I think France did that at the last World Cup with Griezmann, sort of played him a little bit deeper, not the sort of role he did for his club, and it really helped the team. And that would be my sort of going into the first game. Excited to see who he goes for in that midfield, because I think that might tell us a little bit about how England approach the next 2 weeks, hopefully 3 weeks.
Hollie, sorry, before I come back to Hollie, Hollie wants to do a shout out towards the end of the show. So a new member, Hollie. Well done, Hollie, in our channel. It's fantastic. But Jack, I want to ask you sort of generally about the tournament. Do you see like any groups of death? Is any particular games you're looking forward to outside of England? I'm going to get that up on the screen as we speak. I'm looking forward to seeing a particular player. He was linked with Arsenal, but in terms of how he's development, in terms of Benjamin Sesko, he's only 20. I'm actually glad he hasn't come to the Premier League personally, just because I said this to a couple of my mates, and I just think he needs a couple of more years of football where he's at the moment. Obviously, he signed the contract, a contract extension. But is there any particular groups or games you're looking at thinking, I'm really looking forward to that?
Yeah, well, I think I heard Callum say earlier that he sort of fancied Austria as a potential dark horse, and I kind of think if Austria can sort of, obviously with potentially 3 teams are going to be going through in 4 of these groups, so how much jeopardy there is difficult. But I do think Austria, Netherlands, France, obviously France are one of the big favourites for the tournament. Netherlands, I kind of think, although this isn't the best generation of Dutch players, I think that they've got a nicer balance and a nicer setup that suits the players at Koeman's disposal now. I think that they potentially could be better than they were in Qatar 2 years ago. So if Austria can potentially pose a surprise in that group, I mean, I'm sort of, having watched Poland sort of sneak through against Wales, I'd be less convinced that they're going to sort of give the other sides a game. But that'll definitely be an interesting group. And also I think the opening group, Germany, Group A, with the opening game of Germany, Scotland. Obviously, I think everyone would expect Germany as a host nation to go through the quality they've got. But it's a genuine, like, really open race, I think, for second place in that group. And from my point of view, I'd like to see Scotland do it. Fingers crossed they can, if they can sort of get off to a reasonable start. You'd love to get a point if you're Scotland in that first game, wouldn't you? And then that would set them up perfectly for sneaking through. So I think those 2 stand out in particular.
Yeah, Hollie, before I come to you, there's because I made this aware to Hollie. It's obviously it's a certain person's birthday on the Saturday, and that's why I love tournament football, especially. I'll be a few more years past 21, as people may know. So I think Spain are playing Croatia at 5 o'clock on the Saturday. So that's a game to look forward to, I must admit. But I'd be interested to see how Germany get on. Actually, I was really thinking about it, and I think 20-1 for Kai Havertz to be top goal scorer, which might be, if you've got some spare change in your pocket, you might want to have a little flutter on that one, but potentially, because I think they are going to utilize him more as a centre forward. So it'd be interesting to see. But Hollie, fire in with your next question, my dear Hollie.
I'm going to go with the one that we're kind of asking. I know we've alluded about our dark horses kind of thing. But for you, Jack, who would you say is going to go out there and take the tournament by storm? Who's going to be the one that's going to be lifting that trophy right at the end of it?
Writing this down, Jack.
Oh, this is not messing about, Hollie. That's the question as everyone wants to know at the moment. I looking at the draw, which obviously, you can't really see it behind me, but I think if you look at the draw in detail, I do think there's a decent route for Portugal to get to the latter stages. I don't want to say without breaking sweat, because that would be disrespectful to the teams they'll face, but the quality of their squad, I think they should be playing either a third place, one of the best third place teams if they win their group. And then I think, it's sort of that quarter of the draw is quite nice for them, and that's opened up. So, I'd say Portugal are a good bet, I think, to get to the latter stages. But this is the problem with predicting international tournaments, isn't it? It's a cup. At the end of the day, it's cup football, and there's not too many teams I can remember, in sort of the last 20 years or so of major tournaments that get through without winning at least one penalty shootout. You're probably going to have that, whether you want to talk about whether it's luck or whether, penalty shootouts should be an exact science these days. Either way, it's still, it's a close, it's a very marginal outcome either way. And you probably have to win one of them as well. So I like Portugal's chances of going deep in the tournament, but hopefully if from an England point of view, if there's some way Gareth can build sort of a ring of steel around the worries we've got in defence. If he can negate those worries somehow, then I think England's got every chance of, once again. There's no reason why they shouldn't be in the last four, and it's inevitable. That sounds a little bit arrogant, but I honestly believe this group have shown in the previous tournaments that they've got that tournament know-how of how to get into the latter stages, and I think they just need that turn of luck that you need in the final stages. They've had enough bad luck going back way before us three were born. You go back a long way. So 1 year, would England are due a horrendous refereeing decision or something odd going their way? I genuinely believe that. Now, hopefully, it doesn't have to come down to that. But I think England, Portugal, actually, France will be there or thereabouts. Of course, they've got one of the best squads in the world. But I think to be a little, if you have to pin me down to one team, I'll say Portugal after a very long-winded answer.
And Jack, sorry, dark horses.
Dark horses. Well, are they a dark horse? I'm not so sure, but I'll go with Belgium. I think.
Oh, interesting.
I think this is similar to the Dutch. Really, I think this Belgium squad and the way Tedesco set them up. I think this side, for the last 10 years we've heard about, this is Belgium's golden generation. But I think a lot of people in England said that because they had a team of essential 11 Premier League players, pretty much 10 or 11 Premier League players. I think this Belgium side with a really good, probably as good a attacking lineup potentially as anyone in the tournament. That front three of Doku, Lukaku, Trossard, obviously still got De Bruyne, potentially his last major tournament in his sort of peak years. I want to say I feel like it might be. So I will say, some people won't class Belgium as dark horses, but I would expect them to do better than the much fancied so-called golden generation did at previous tournaments.
No, that's a great shout. I can't complain with that. Listen, there's going to be some really good games, man. Like I said, I'm very intrigued to see how Germany get on actually, because they had a period. I'd say, I know they got to final in 2002, but that to me that wasn't the best German squad in the World Cup. To be fair, but they had some doldrum years, Germany. To be honest, in major tournaments, that's a poor succession of players coming through. But it'd be interesting to see how Nagelsmann does actually. Because there's actually some good players that didn't make the Germany squad. We're quite surprised about, but it'd be interesting to see. Home tournament advantage counts for a lot, particularly when you're Germany. I could definitely say that. But Holly, have I got another question? Have I got one? I've always got a question, haven't I?
I say you've always got one.
Yeah, I've got one. Yeah, Jack, is there any particular players you're looking forward to seeing play, whether that be in England team or in any other nations in the tournament?
Well, I think just on the theme of Germany, I mean, Musiala, I think has got to have a big. If he has a big tournament, then I can see Germany doing well. And that's quite like a safe bet. Like I'm sort of saying, if he doesn't show the sort of form he has done over the past 2 years in the Bundesliga, then I don't think Germany will do that well. But I think basically a lot of their play might go through him. As you said as well, Havertz sort of playing more as their potential out-and-out goal scorer. But you know, he's a man for the big occasion, isn't he? He does turn up for. He's exactly the sort of player you could see scoring the winner in a tight 1-0 semi-final or final. So I'm really excited to see them. But also, as I mentioned before, I think that the way that attacking trio works for Belgium, Lukaku has got to be on the shout for Golden Boot, I think, as well, because he's sort of I think their first 2 games, I think, are Slovakia and potentially Romania. I might have got that if I've got that wrong. Sorry, but it's their first 2 games. I think it could tee up Belgium nicely for potentially some wins with decent scorelines. Yeah, Slovakia and Romania. So you know they win those 2 pretty comfortably. Lukaku gets himself on the 3 or 4 goals potentially from those 2 games, and he could be set up for sort of, I suppose, finally coming to the fore for an international tournament. But it's not. There's a lot of players who never showed their best, didn't even get to a major tournament, so it's difficult to do. And from an England perspective as well, as we've talked about earlier, if Eze steps on that pitch at some stage, which I'm sure he will,
come on, Eze.
And Anthony Gordon as well, I think will give them something a little bit different, just because of the way he stretches. I think in the games where we're perhaps playing a more open, expansive game against some of the better teams, bringing on Anthony Gordon with 20 minutes to go with his pace that could be sort of the wild card. England might need that. They might at some stage need a wild card player off the bench in Eze, Gordon, maybe Palmer, someone who gets us through a tricky knockout game. But it's wherever you look, I mean, there's players to get excited about.
Yeah, hopefully Saka will do that in 90 minutes as well. Go on, Saka. I have to get that one in there. But Eze, I think he had in last season Premier League, I think he had 15 goal contributions. That is impressive. No disrespect in the Palace side, and he had a lot of injuries as well. Eze, that should be counted in as well. But
I think we're all fans of different Premier League clubs here. I don't think there's many Premier League teams that wouldn't sign Eze, Albert. I think that, like you two were talking about, a potential battle for him in North London earlier. But I don't think there's many teams that wouldn't have him at this stage.
Yeah, me and Hollie, we're getting on all right so far because it's a major tournament. But
you got a long way to go. You got 4 weeks of this. See you when you do preview.
But no, Hollie, Jack wants to give a big thank you, Jack, for coming. I think this is your hat-trick appearance for me and Hollie's joint collaborations over a whole host of tournaments. So you're a fantastic guest to have on, Jack. Jack, tell the people where they can find you and what are you up to next.
Thank you, Albert. I appreciate that. And thanks, Hollie, as well for the invite. Just follow me at Jack Lacey Sport on Twitter, because hopefully I'm going to be giving a few more potentially insightful, potentially not insightful views over the course of the next 3 to 4 weeks. So really looking forward to it getting started now.
Jack, appreciate you coming on, mate. Take care, and we'll definitely speak soon.
Thank you, guys. See you soon,
pal. Thank you, mate. Hollie, and now left was 2, the co-host. Now, Hollie, you need to do some housekeeping for your side of the channel, so go ahead and do that.
So Hollie's Hotspurs. I think my camera's lagging out. Standard. It only lasts so long. But anyway, Hollie's Hotspurs, as you know, the better side of North London over on my channel. But for tournament football,
you better hold yourself down there because we're going to get into a 50 cups. Remember, this has got to go out on audio, Hollie, so just calm down.
Sorry. No, Hollie's Hotspurs, go and watch over there. Like I say, for tournament football, me and Albert will be streaming on both channels. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to Albert and my channel so you'll never miss anything. And it's been good fun tonight, Albert. We've got more of this to come. Woohoo!
Well, you got a new. You had a member to mention, didn't you?
Oh Jesus, yeah. See, this is why I need you. And yes, I need to give a big shout out to Kyle, because Kyle has been a member since I can't even remember when, since I even started doing members. So Kyle, thank you so much my friends. Really do appreciate it. Legend of Hollie's Hotspurs, and really appreciate you obviously being a member and watching the show. So cheers. Thank you very much. Thank you, Albert, for reminding me, because my brain's a sieve.
Well, that was the point, and you actually didn't even mention it, so that wasn't great. But thank you for the housekeeping. No, people, like I said, want to big up to the amazing guests. Thank you for Darren for leaving us the video segment that you did. Obviously, Callum McFadden from a Scottish point of view as well, especially, and also thank you, Jack Lacey Sport, or Jack Lacey Hatton, who Jack Lacey Sport on Twitter. Their Twitter handles have been going along the bottom of the screen throughout the entire stream. Audio listeners, you will never, ever be forgotten. So you'll hear everybody's dulcet tones, beautiful dulcet tones, on Apple and also on the Spotify downloads. Hollie, this has been a trilogy collaboration. It's been an absolute pleasure. We've had some amazing guests on. What's your final thoughts, Hollie?
Well, I'm going to say who I want to win the tournament, or who I should say is going
yes,
to win the
tournament. Well done. Yes, well done.
I remembered that. I'm going to go with England to win it, because,
there we go. Good,
going Hollie. All the way. And I'm going to go with the Netherlands as my dark horse, purely because of Mickey van der Ven, aka Daddy Longlegs. He's just going to, honestly, it's going to walk through the whole tournament. I don't want them to win, so I want England to win. But if I'm going to have to choose someone that doesn't win instead of them, I'll choose Netherlands. Yeah. So I'm going to throw it right back at you. Yeah. Who is your winner and dark horse?
Yeah, what we need to do, because I saw the route planner for England, to get through. It's gonna be tough, man. It's gonna be tough. But I went for a bit of a curveball. I thought, look, I know what people probably would go for. So I was to and fro, but my winners have gone for Portugal. They've got a stacked squad, man. You've got Ronaldo still playing well at his age. You've got Bernardo Silva on one side and Rafael Leao on the other side. It's like, oh my God. That's not even talking about defense. What's his name again? Pepe still playing at centre back. It's unbelievable. You've got Ruben Diaz there. You've got Cancelo. You've got some quality players there. So they're my tournament winners. And dark horses have gone for Germany. And like I said, I might go for that little bet on the top goal scorer. It might be, like I said, outside bet Kai Havertz. You never know. You never know. But we'll see. But no, big up to the people that are watching live on Twitter and on YouTube for both AlbertJTV and Hollie's Hotspur. So smash a like for both channels and subscribe to both channels, people, like I said. And yes, that is the Euro 2024 preview show. It's done. Hollie, we will be back for the England-Serbia review on Tuesday, the 18th of June at 7 p.m. We have our guests already lined up, but we will not do that yet. And we'll put it out. We'll put the teaser out on the Tuesday. That is also the day, Hollie. Mm-hmm. Now, most people should know that is a release of the Premier League fixtures.
Ooh, double bubble.
I thought you might find that a bit exciting. I thought you did. Yeah. So Tuesday, 8 p.m. Tuesday the 18th of June. Yes, 7 p.m. for the match review for Serbia versus England. It also will be Father's Day on the England game on Serbia as well. So people, it's gonna be a busy day, busy day. But we are over and out for the Euro 2024 preview show. Hollie's Hotspurs and AlbertJTV. We will see you all soon enough. Over and out. God bless, people. Where's the outro, Hollie? It is right there. See you soon, people.